Something was very wrong with David's life. It wasn't his job, it wasn't his apartment, it was the days of the week. For David, one of them was simply gone. It was always Tuesday. He would wake up on Monday morning feeling perfectly normal and ready for the week ahead. He would go to work, come home, eat dinner and then go to sleep. But when his alarm clock buzzed the next morning, it was always Wednesday. Every single time. It was as if Tuesday had been completely erased from his calendar, and more frighteningly, from his memory. He had no idea where the day went, or what he did during those missing 24 hours. Imagine going to bed on a Monday night, and then waking up to find out you missed a whole day. That was David's reality. A strange and unsettling weekly cycle. His friends would mention things he supposedly did on Tuesdays. "You were hilarious at the cafe yesterday," his friend Sarah might say. David would just nod and pretend he remembered, his stomach twisting into a cold knot. He checked his bank account and saw charges from places he couldn't recall visiting. There were movie tickets, receipts from strange diners, and once a bill for a boat rental. A boat? David didn't even know how to sail. The person living his Tuesdays was a complete stranger to him. This strange gap in his life made him feel like a ghost. He was living only 6 out of every 7 days. Was he sleepwalking through an entire day? Was someone else taking control of his body? The questions buzzed in his head like angry bees, never giving him a moment of peace. He would look in the mirror on Wednesday mornings, searching his own face for clues. Did he look tired? Were there any strange marks? But he always looked the same, just a little more confused and a lot more scared. The mystery of the missing Tuesday was a dark cloud that followed him everywhere, casting a long shadow over his entire life. The fear was getting worse with each passing week. He started to dread Monday nights more than anything else. Sleep, which should have been a peaceful escape, felt like a dangerous door to the unknown. He would lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to fight off the inevitable pull of slumber. He wondered what Tuesday David was like. Was he fun? Was he dangerous? Did he have a secret life that the normal everyday David knew nothing about? The not knowing was the worst part. It was a terrifying puzzle, and he was the missing piece. He had to find out what was happening before his life unraveled completely. David knew he couldn't live like this forever. He had to find some answers, no matter how strange they might be. His first stop was the doctor's office. He explained his situation, feeling foolish as the words came out. He told the doctor about waking up on Wednesdays, about the missing time and the complete memory loss. The doctor listened patiently, nodding his head. He ran lots of tests, checking David's brain and his blood, but every test came back perfectly normal. The doctor suggested it might be stress and told David to try and relax. Relax? How could he relax when a whole day of his life vanished every single week? Next, David turned to technology for help. If he couldn't remember his Tuesdays, maybe a camera could. He bought a small video camera and set it up in the corner of his living room on a Monday night. He pointed it directly at his front door, hoping to see himself leave or see who might come to visit. He went to sleep that night with a small flicker of hope. But when he woke up on Wednesday morning, the camera was gone. Not broken, not turned off, but completely vanished from his apartment. The only thing left was the empty tripod standing in the corner like a silent metal skeleton. Desperate, David decided to ask his friends for help. He sat down with his best friend Mark and told him everything. Mark looked worried, his eyes wide with concern. He agreed to help David solve the mystery. The plan was simple. Mark would call him all day on Tuesday. He would text him and maybe even try to follow him. But on the next Wednesday, Mark called David, sounding frustrated. "I tried, man," Mark said. "Your phone was off all day. I went to your apartment, but you never answered the door. It's like you just disappeared into thin air." The mystery was getting deeper, and David felt more alone than ever before. The failures made David feel helpless. It seemed like every attempt to find the truth was blocked by some invisible force. It was as if the mystery itself didn't want to be solved. He felt like a character in a scary story, trapped in a loop he couldn't break. Who was taking his camera? Why was his phone always turned off? Was he doing this to himself? covering his own tracks for some reason he couldn't remember? The questions piled up, each one more frightening than the last. David knew he was running out of options. He needed something to break the cycle, a clue that would finally lead him to the truth. One Monday afternoon, everything changed. David came home from work and checked his mailbox, just like any other day. Tucked between a pizza flyer and a bill was a strange envelope. It was thick and heavy, and there was no return address. His name, David, was written on the front in messy, jagged handwriting. A shiver crawled down his spine as he picked it up. It felt cold to the touch. He took it inside, his heart pounding in his chest. Who would send him a letter like this? He carefully tore it open, his hands trembling slightly as he pulled out the single piece of paper folded inside. The message on the paper was short and terrifying. It was made of letters cut out from magazines and newspapers, glued onto the page. The message read, "Stop looking. Tuesday is not for you." That was it. No signature, no explanation, just a chilling warning. David dropped the letter as if it had burned his fingers. This was no longer just a strange medical problem or a weird memory issue. Someone else was involved. Someone knew about his missing Tuesdays and they wanted him to stop trying to figure it out. But who and why? The letter didn't provide answers. It only created more terrifying questions. Fear turned into determination. David was tired of being scared. He was tired of being a victim of this strange weekly curse. The letter was a threat, but it was also a clue. It proved that another person was part of this mystery. That night, David made a decision. He was not going to let sleep take him. He was going to stay awake all night. He would fight through Monday night and see what happened when the clock struck midnight. He would finally meet Tuesday head-on. He brewed a huge pot of strong black coffee and turned on every light in his apartment. He was ready for a fight. He sat on his couch, the creepy letter on the coffee table in front of him. He drank cup after cup of coffee, his eyes wide and burning. The hours crawled by. 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock. The city outside grew quiet. His apartment felt like a tiny, brightly lit island in a sea of darkness. Every creak of the building made him jump. Every shadow seemed to move. He pinched his arms to stay awake, his mind racing. What would happen at midnight? Would someone knock on his door? Would he simply pass out, no matter how hard he fought? He stared at the clock on the wall, watching the second hand tick its way toward his destiny. The final minutes before midnight felt like an eternity. David's eyes were glued to the clock, his body tense and buzzing with caffeine and fear. 11:58, 11:59. He held his breath. The long hand of the clock clicked into place. It was midnight. It was officially Tuesday. For a moment, nothing happened. The apartment was silent. A wave of relief washed over David. Maybe he had done it. Maybe he had beaten the curse just by staying awake. But then, a strange feeling started in his toes. A heavy, irresistible sleepiness began to crawl up his legs, wrapping around him like a thick, warm blanket. He tried to fight it. He stood up and paced around the room, but his legs felt like lead. His eyelids were so heavy he could barely keep them open. The world around him started to go blurry, the bright lights of his apartment smearing together. The last thing he saw before the darkness swallowed him completely was his own reflection in the dark television screen. But it wasn't his face staring back. It was someone else. Someone who looked like him, but with a cold, cruel smile on his lips. Then everything went black. He had failed. Tuesday had taken him once again, pulling him under into its silent, unknown depths. When David woke up, sunlight was streaming through his window. His head throbbed and his mouth was dry. He looked at his phone. It was Wednesday morning. He let out a groan of frustration. But then he felt a sharp, stinging pain on his cheek. He rushed to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. A thin red scar, about an inch long, ran down his left cheek. It was fresh. He had never seen it before. Panic set in. He grabbed his phone and frantically scrolled through his photos. There, among his normal pictures, were new ones. Photos he didn't take. Photos from Tuesday. The pictures were strange and unsettling. One showed a dark, dusty basement he didn't recognize. Another was a close-up of a strange old map. A third showed his own hand holding a rusty ornate key. He swiped to the last photo and his blood ran cold. It was a selfie. It was him. Or the person who looked like him, grinning that same cruel smile he saw in the reflection. He was standing in front of a locked wooden door. Below the photo was a text message, sent from his phone to an unknown number. The message contained only 2 words, a terrifying promise that sealed his fate. Next week, the mystery was far from over. It was just beginning.